Of all the transmissions out there, manuals, automatics, dual clutch, sequential, you got stuck being a CVT. The transmission people love to hate, the bee in the blender, the black sheep of the drivetrain world. People groan at the mere mention of you, and it's all because you've been thrown in for a very rough ride. Welcome to why it would suck to be a CVT. First, how did you get here? How did you go from being an innovative solution to fuel efficiency, automation, and smooth acceleration to being one of the most hated pieces of car tech in history? And most importantly, is all of this hate really justified? Buckle up and shift gears because that's kind of a terrible suggestion because you're supposed to be a CVT. But anyways, let's drive in. Your story starts way before modern cars. In fact, your concept goes all the way back to Leonardo da Vinci in the 1490s. That's right, the dude that made Lady Mona Lisa, The Last Supper, and the picture of the man going full spread. Amongst da Vinci's numerous sketches, a primitive version of you was born before cars even existed. Using a spiraling gear wrapped around a cone, Leonardo's idea was you could gradually transfer high torque to high speed without having to swap gears. Kind of like today's versions of you, but you could only do this within a small range. As in, once you reach the end of this spiral, then this entire machine has to be reset, and that's not very practical for a car. Fast forward a few centuries, and in 1879, a young 15-year-old Milton Othello Reeves had the idea of making a variable speed saw. In the mill he was working at, saws had to operate at a constant speed, making them wasteful and dangerous, and so he came up with this concept. Unlike Da Vinci's version, Reeves' design of you was going to be somewhat useful for a car, and he constructed you by bolting various pieces of wood to a leather belt, and these pieces of wood would wedge between two V-shaped pulleys. Increasing the gap between one of these pulleys causes the wood and your belt to sink towards the center, decreasing the overall size of the pulley. And decreasing the gap or pushing the pulley sides together forces the wood and your belt towards the outside of the pulley, effectively making the pulley larger. Here is a working machine of Reeves' design in operation. By turning this hand wheel, your input pulley decreases in size since the sides of the pulley are separating and allowing the wood along this belt to sink towards the center, and on the opposing pulley, the belt's being forced towards the outside, and this is like choosing first gear in your car, giving you a high gear ratio. You can also create a lower gear ratio by making your input pulley larger and your output pulley smaller, which is kind of like choosing sixth gear in a car or an infinite number of gears anywhere in between. So, what happened to you in Reeves' design? Well, in 1896, Reeves used you in a car that he was inventing, which is believed to be the fourth or fifth road-purposed vehicle. But like most cars at this point in time, it was very expensive and very unreliable, and so you really didn't catch on. You made an occasional appearance in other small vehicle companies, such as in this cone-shaped CVT design used by Kleino Engineering in the early 1900s, but these companies, like Reeves, also struggled in the automotive market, and they fizzled out as well. Then, in 1958, you made a comeback in the DAF 600, a Dutch-made car featuring the Variomatic transmission, a two-belt-driven CVT that could distribute torque between the two wheels, acting somewhat like a limited-slip differential. You were simple. More efficient than automatic transmissions at the time, but you were stuck in tiny, low-powered cars. Your rubber belts were prone to overheating and wearing out pretty quickly. And while you did have the perk of being able to auto-adjust your gear ratio by using something called a centrifugal clutch, this clutch had to be tuned from the factory and could either deliver high torque, high fuel efficiency, or high power, but you couldn't do the best of all of these worlds. This means, depending on a customer's driving habits and where they lived, they were going to experience you as being either a good transmission or being one that was absolutely terrible, so it was kind of difficult for you to catch on. But DAF believed in you, throwing you into rallycross, Formula 3, and even endurance events. You, in return, excelled in wet conditions, took first place in the 1968 Appenline Rally, and even placed 17th in the grueling 16,500-kilometer London Sydney Marathon with 100 other drivers. Talk about endurance for a rubber belt. Oh, and you dominated in reverse racing up until you were banned for being too good, and because I imagine the hosts of these races bosses weren't exactly fond of a car going backwards at 60 miles an hour, probably a little bit of a liability issue. You were very rarely the best, but because of your limitations due to the lack of tech and material advancements at the time, you were doing pretty damn good. By 1975, DAF was sold to Volvo, and your patents eventually landed with Bosch in 1995. Meanwhile, Subaru, Honda, and Nissan were all working out ways to refine you, recognizing your potential to deliver seamless acceleration with maximum fuel efficiency. At first, things looked very promising. You were light, smooth, and on paper, more fuel efficient than automatic transmissions. You even made it into mainstream models like the Honda Civic and Toyota Prius. But then, well, disaster struck. Here's where things got ugly. Nissan and its supplier Jatco went all in on you, using you in everything from the Altima to the Rogue. But they rushed it, and things started to really backfire. Your early designs weren't built for longevity. They were built to hit the production line fast and to make sales. And the result was your belts wore out too fast, overheating led to catastrophic failures, and the software lagged, making drivers feel disconnected from your vehicles, leading to bad early reviews. Then there was the dreaded rubber band effect, where revving felt lagged and endless and very unsatisfying, and maintenance intervals were also too optimistic, and when failures and repair bills started to pile up, so did the lawsuits on Nissan. Customers were understandably pissed because you failed despite regular maintenance, and Nissan, in its race to be the first major player in mass marketing CVTs, hadn't taken the time to properly develop you. It was a huge gamble and one they lost, and the result was customers and masses had to take on $2,000 to $5,000 repair bills because Nissan designed you in ways that failed and made repairs unnecessarily difficult for mechanics to work on. And let's not forget the lack of a proper cooling system, which was the primary culprit of your shortened lifespan. Nissan's reputation tanked, and unfortunately, they dragged your name down with them. But hold on, are you really as bad as people say? Not necessarily. In fact, in the right hands, you're actually brilliant. For one, you're the reason hybrids and fuel-efficient cars can squeeze out that extra miles per gallon. Unlike traditional transmissions with fixed gears, you can constantly adjust to keep your engine in its optimal power band. That means better fuel economy and smoother driving when it's done right. Nissan. You even scared F1. In 1993, Team Williams tested a CVT, and when the FIA saw the results, they banned you from being used in a race. Why? Because you would have been too good, eliminating the need for shifting, allowing for peak power output, and also you reduce the amount of driver skill needed, which the FIA really doesn't like. They also don't want the races to sound like a bunch of angry lawnmowers, so you were banned. In terms of mainstream usage, most manufacturers have finally started to dial you in, with Honda and Subaru seemingly being the most admired because they eased you into their models, and they even included fake shifting to mimic traditional transmissions, which is kind of ridiculous. Real talk for a second. Vehicle manufacturers, if you're listening, make the fake shifting option optional. Put the C back in CVT. It's common sense. So, what's next for you, the CVT? Well, it's a mixed bag because you still dominate the hybrid and fuel-efficient market, but with traditional automatics getting more gears and EVs ditching their transmissions altogether, your role is starting to shrink. EVs, or electric vehicles, already have instant torque, and they don't need this complex gearing, meaning that they could make you obsolete. And for fun performance-related vehicles, manuals, sequentials, automatics, and DCTs will continue to thrive. But as long as gas-powered and hybrid vehicles stay in the picture, and as long as there's an aim for maximum fuel efficiency, you will always stick around. You might never win over driving enthusiasts, but at least you make what could have been boring single-speed transmissions a whole lot more fun. If you would like to see another Why It Would Suck to Be a video, then consider checking this one out and hitting the subscribe button. This is one of my favorite types of content to make, so I'll be making more like this in the future. And also, a major thank you to channel members. I don't want to forget you guys because I can't thank you enough. And hopefully you guys enjoy seeing this video early, and hopefully I will see everybody in the next video. Bye-bye. 5 full hours of just recording the voiceover. My voice is permanently stuck in radio mode.